Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Black Man Speak. I'm your co-host, VJR Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3 Jimmy. It is Wednesday night, January the 29th, the last Wednesday of January, and if it is Wednesday night.
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So let's give a shout out to me for putting our little introduction theme together. And if you haven't already, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when new shows are uploaded, which is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. And if you're here watching the show live, go ahead and bring a friend with you, a neighbor, a coworker, so you have something interesting to talk about. And if you want to help us out with the algorithm, go ahead and hit that like button. We'll get more views and get higher up in the rankings for YouTube and other platforms are concerned. So with that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best, which is bring leading edge information to the Black community on social media. Let's go.
All right, Jimmy, let's go ahead and get this party started. As Jimmy and I have discussed over the last couple of weeks as we started the new year, we are changing our strategy when it pertains to the content that we are bringing to our constituents, our base, and we are going to start focusing on new, more business content focused on building our community. And Jimmy, we are going to talk today about the fundamentals of sales for small businesses and individual sellers. If we have a little time on the back end, we may talk a little bit of sports because, of course, this past weekend was a little sports activity. But with all that being said, Jimmy, let's kind of go ahead and get started. As some of you guys may be aware, both Jimmy and I do have sales experience. Jimmy has been a serial entrepreneur for as long as I've known him. He has always been out there building new businesses and doing things out there where he has kind of been building businesses and selling them and doing whatever he does. And I've been actually in the corporate sales arena for 20 plus some odd years. And Jimmy, let's talk a little bit about why this topic is important, how it relates to our viewers, and then we will go ahead and get started.
Yes, Tom. I mean, Tom is one of the champion sellers, one of the best ones that I know personally. He's a great person. When I need information, when I'm stuck, there have been plenty of times I've called on him to get advice on how to overcome objections, how to approach things. He has a wealth of knowledge and experience. So it's great to have access to champion sellers like Tom. And Tom, people think that everyone seems to be afraid of selling. We tend to conjure up images of used car salesmen when we think about sales. But if you really think about it, everyone in life is selling something. Selling
True.
yourself, trying to sell yourself on a promotion, trying to sell an idea to your boss, or even in an interview. Whether it's a product or service or yourself, everyone is always selling. And the people who do a good job at selling, Tom, tend to be successful, which is why your CEOs and executives come up through the sales ranks and don't come up through operations or IT ranks. I have yet to see a Fortune 500 company being run by a person that came up through the IT ranks. So you may have some smart engineers in IT, but the people who run companies, Tom, in the end, are people who know how to sell and bring the business in, bring the money in. That's all that matters in business.
That's true. And if they are technical people, they're definitely going to have to learn sales strategy, how to deal with people. One of the greatest investors of all time, Warren Buffett, even though he was more of a technologist when it came to investing in finance, he actually had to take a public speaking course so we could learn to communicate with people or how to communicate effectively with people when he was very young. And he was a nerdy act. He wasn't very strong in his communication skills. Anybody who's read his book or any of his books will understand that he actually took a communication course so that he could learn how to connect to and relate to people. Because like most people, he and anyone else had a challenge with getting in front of people and talking. I think maybe after dying, if that's number one, talking in front of a group of people on a stage is probably the greatest fear that people have, maybe behind dying and snakes.
Okay.
So with that being said, let's talk a little about sales and why is it relevant. I mean, as Jimmy mentioned a little bit earlier, sales is relevant to everyone, whether you are in a sales role or not. About 15% of the American population, give or take, is involved in some sales capacity, whether it's direct sales, B2C, or C2C. Of course, most people have heard of multi-level marketing and
Hmm.
or different sales models and sales strategies. I worked in a B2C role selling for large Fortune 500 companies to other companies. But at the end of the day, you're selling from person to person.
Right.
One of the fastest growing demographics, as we've talked about, at least in the American economy, are the number of women owned businesses.
True.
And so when you have situations where you have a large number of layoffs in your economy, typically you're going to have a growth in the number of small businesses so that people can learn how to feed their families. But getting to brass tacks on this, I will simplify for those people who are in non sales. There's what you call marketing, and there's what you call sales. Marketing, very simply put, even though there are different definitions of it, marketing helps create demand for a specific product or service, whether you're talking about the way that someone dresses themselves, whether you're talking about a retail outlet in terms of whenever you see a sale, that's a part of a marketing ploy. It's just a part of a marketing strategy. But there are different strategies of creating demand for a product or service. When you talk about sales, that's really more of a process. It's a conversion cycle of someone out there who may or may not know that they have a active or a latent need, meaning that they know they have an interest in something, or they may not even know that they need something.
Hmm.
It's about converting a prospect to a customer. Very simple. I mean, you can go into the dictionary, but really it's just a matter of conversion of getting someone who has an active or latent need for a product or service into a customer, ideally a recurring customer.
Tom, you said easy, but the prospect of selling something to selling to a lot of people invokes fear.
It is.
So why is there such trepidation when it comes to selling? And I know for a while back, for some early companies that I had, it was hard to find people that could usher some simple words like, "How do you want to pay for this?" And you'd be surprised how difficult it is for people to ask that simple question. So, can you tackle the fear factor when it comes to selling?
Well, core to fear, just like anything else, is the fear of rejection. You don't want somebody telling you no. For some people, it's kind of a blow to their ego, but at some point in time, everybody's been called no, been told no from the time that they were a child, and you wanted something that you probably did not need. Everybody has had to deal with rejection. But as salespeople, we deal with the prospect of having to deal with no's or what we call rejections every day, what some people may call hurdles to get over in order to get to that yes. And so it's very simple, the fear of rejection. And let's be very clear, the more no's you get to, the faster you get to being comfortable with those no's.
True, that's
But
very true.
the key is coming up with a system and a process. In the sales world, let's say if we're selling a widget, first thing you have to understand is what business are you in? Whether you are selling pencils, whether you are selling technology, whether you're selling cars, insurance, whether you're selling medical supplies. The key to starting out is understanding what you're doing and why. And what that means is, who is your customer set? Who do you have an affinity towards? Who do you have a passion for? Some people have an affinity for selling to senior citizens. Some have
Hmm.
an affinity for selling to technical people. Some have an affinity for driving demand with children who get their parents to pay for products for them. Who is your market? What are their needs? What are their pain points? And quite frankly, what kind of problem are you trying to solve? Because if you don't understand what kind of problem you're trying to solve, you're not going to be selling very much unless it's such an easy product to sell, like cereal or candy or something like that, that people just have a active demand for it. But for most folks who are in what we call direct sales,
Hmm.
selling for a company or selling a product, you have to understand your customer, understand what problem it is solving, and then learning how to overcome what we call, this is the fear factor, objections. Because it doesn't matter what business you're in, who you're selling to, everybody's going to be buying from somebody, but it may not be you.
Right.
So you have to come up with a system, you have to come up with a strategy to clearly articulate who is your market, who is your target market, who are you trying to sell to, why do they need your product or service. You're going to have to actually go through the work of understanding how to create value, because you're probably, unless you come up with a completely new idea that no one's ever thought of, usually there's going to be what we call competition in the market. So you have to understand, how do you create differentiation and or separation in the market? And then, and this is what I call very important kind of next level stuff, is qualifying what you call your pool of potential candidates or prospects, and then figuring out who you're going to really pay attention to. Let's make something very simple. Let's talk about cars.
Okay.
There are GM people, General Motors cars. You got Pontiacs, Cadillacs, Chevys, etc. You got Toyota people, folks who have a tendency, either they like foreign cars or they may like Asian cars. For instance, Toyotas are made in Japan. But if we look at the foreign car category, you could also be talking about a BMW. You could
True.
also be talking about a Mercedes. And so the faster you're able to clearly narrow down who your target market is, what their desires are, what are the key factors in terms of making their decision, then you can come up with a sales strategy to figure out where they are, how to get to them, and then build your funnel of prospective buyers. Once you build that funnel of prospective buyers, you have to figure out kind of where they are. Do they have an active or known need for, in this case, in a product? If we're talking about cars, there are some people like me who keep their cars for almost a lifetime or until it literally the wheels fall off. Or you have
I'm
people
the same
who,
way, Tom.
exactly, or you have people who are going to want to rotate cars every 3 or 4 years. And so you have to understand how to get into that cycle. So you have this pool of people who need a car. There's going to probably be a smaller group, maybe in New York, because they have public transportation is very efficient, compared to Texas, where you literally have to have some type of vehicle, whether it's a car, a truck, or an SUV. You get your funnel, what we used to call suspects. They don't know you, you don't know them. Prospects, you've made a touch with that community of potential buyers. Engage, talk to them about what their needs are. If they just bought a car, then that's somebody that you'll probably put into your tickler file to contact them every now and again, just to stay in touch, just so they will remember your name, because they don't have an active need for a car. They just got into a new car lease. After 2 years or so, you'll probably start talking about, when are they considering possibly getting into a new car, and showing them maybe some of the features, some of the new things that are coming out, and how you can service their needs.
So that involves you having to stay in contact and have some system to track these people over a long period of time.
Exactly. And it depends on the product. Some people sell products that they rotate, every 1 or a couple of years, clothing, food. And you have folks who have more products that are kind of in the strategic or long-term realm. So Jimmy, you can relate to this. Let's say if you're selling technology, if you're selling, or you're representing a company or representing yourself, and you're selling a new CRM system, customer relationship management system, or you're selling a new accounting system, well, that has a life cycle of possibly 8, 10, 15 years,
Correct.
unless it's got a lot of problems and a lot of bugs in it and they're just trying to get out of it. So it really depends on what we call the sales cycle for your product or service, in terms of how you're managing your communication cycle. This is key. You don't want to just approach somebody just because you're trying to sell to them. even though that may happen on occasion. You may get lucky and get in contact with someone who actually has an active need. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time. It's happened to me. It's probably happened to everybody.
Right.
But you have to build a sales system. A contact management system is what we call it, which is a CRM, customer relationship management system, where you build your pool, you load all of your data into that system. It could be a multi-million dollar CRM system, or it could be something that you're paying monthly, maybe 15, 20, 30, $50 a month, just to stay in contact, sending out news, sending out mailers, just to kind of keep you and your brand on their mind.
Right.
Something that everybody can relate to, Jimmy: McDonald's. Whether you're interested in McDonald's or not, you're gonna hear from them, because typically everybody's watching the TV,
Correct.
or maybe is listening to the radio, or they're online. They're going to see a Wendy's commercial. They're going to see a McDonald's commercial, a Dr. Pepper commercial. God forbid, they're going to see some pharmaceutical company who is trying to subliminally create demand, what we call marketing, into buying their product or service. And so that is a part of their sales strategy that is indirect, that is very subtle, and over tens or hundreds or thousands of different iterations over weeks, months, and or possibly years. They're building demand slowly for their product.
Oh, and Tom,
And
they got it down to a science.
yes, they
I
do.
mean, they've been at it so long. Like you say, but they do try different campaigns, and I watch some of these things just to study the campaigns and what's going on. So I'm always intrigued by these things, but you have to vary it up, Tom. And you're right. That CRM system or an ERP system, you have to have something in place where you can track the data, so you can see what works and what doesn't work. If something's not working, it doesn't make sense to continue simply because that's your system. It's not working. It's not working. If it's not getting the results that you want, then you may have to tweak it. You may have to make some changes to it until you find what actually works. So can you talk about that a little bit? And then also you talked about objections, overcoming objections. One of the things I pay attention to when I'm dealing with people is, especially salespeople, Tom, is how well do they overcome objections. Sometimes I'll throw out some just to test the waters. Not that I'm really objecting to what you had to say or your offer. I just want to see how you're going to respond to it and how well you respond to it. And people who respond well, I tend to gravitate towards. I do business with you if you overcome objections well, because it lets me know you put some time in developing your skill as a salesperson. But the ones who are fumbling, they have to think about it. They're going to get back with me, circle back, and they'll send me a report because they don't know what to say at the time. Time they pretty much just also sell.
I would happen to agree with you, and it just kind of depends on what type of buyer you are. You're a little bit more of a complex buyer, but you are exactly right when it comes to handling objections. Really, when somebody's able to respond to that, what it means is they've actually put some thought and or collected data on the objective that they have received over time, and actually begun planning how they're going to respond to it so they can be prepared. Sometimes, Jimmy, you're going to get an objection that you just haven't come across yet. It could come from left field, and you say, you know what? That's a good question. I haven't come across that. Or, you know what? I'd like to do some more research on that and get back with you, which gives you an opportunity to go back and get in contact with them. But every good seller has a list of objections that they have collected over a period of time, that helps them to fluidly and fastly respond to, you know what, I'm not responsible for making that type of decision. Or, you know what, for instance, when I go into Walmart, there's usually someone there trying to sell electricity services. And
Okay.
I have the service provider. So I go in there. Typically they get young people to go in there, probably low cost labor, and it's like, hey, can I help you to save some money on your electricity bill? And I'll typically say, well, you know what? I'm sorry, I just renewed my agreement. Well, thank you.
It
Well,
stops right there, doesn't it? They don't know what to
exactly.
say after that.
Exactly. And that's just a very small example. But if they would have followed up something like, if I can definitely understand with that. But, what is your average bill currently running at, which most people know what their electricity bill, unless it's very cheap. They know what their electricity bill, and it's like, if I could show you how to save some money, do you mind me following up and sending you some information?
Or if I can save you enough money to cover the fee that's going to cost to break your contract, would you at
Would
least
it be
look
worth,
at?
would it be worth learning more about?
Yes, would it be any reasonable follow up to give a person something to think about, and as long as it's reasonable. Well, I mean, if you can save me enough where I'm not going to be at a loss by switching, I'm going to still find a way to benefit, maybe not as much. Then yeah, I'll take a look. But if you say I just renewed my service agreement with a contract with someone, my provider, and they don't know what to say afterwards other than thank you and wait and look forward. I mean, they're looking for the next person to come along. Then yeah, they just lost potential sale.
Right. And this is the deal, Jimmy. If you're training someone, and that's a very difficult sell, it's almost like selling encyclopedias back in the day.
Back in the day, those
Really got to.
World Book encyclopedias, man.
The key is to engage. The key is to say something that stimulates their attention and get them to engage. They may not even have a need at that time, but it's the engagement that is most important. Before we get done, since it's already 20 minutes after the hour, I want to acknowledge a couple of people on the chat line. We
Okay,
have see who do we have on the chat line thus far. We have cousin Audrey K. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We have Miss Tanya.
Miss
Thank her for
Tanya,
joining us this evening. We got Brother Frederick V. Roberts.
Esquire.
Evening out of Prairie View, Texas. We have Miss Carol Wilson. Let me see. What is a good system to track people and where they are in the sales cycle? I'll talk about that in a few. Here are the two biggest objections I typically get. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. How do I find the best answer to overcome these objections? Okay, I will definitely get to those. So as it pertains to contact management systems, it depends on your business, what the nature of your customers are, and what kind of data you have to collect for them. Obviously working in the corporate arena, we've used, and these are big company solutions. You got Siebel, you have Salesforce, which is a SaaS-based offering, and of course, they're probably a known commodity. So there are probably about 3 to 5 big sellers. But back in the day, Jimmy, we had an ACT database. It was an ACT contact management system. We called it a contact management system back then. Now we call it a CRM, a customer relationship management system. Quite frankly, some people even use a spreadsheet, and it's very basic. Obviously, you don't want to have a ton of customers using a spreadsheet, but some people do use a spreadsheet. They may use ACT. And quite frankly, what I would do
Hey
is I
Don,
would, yes.
hold that thought for a second. I want to interrupt you because this is a pitch. This right here is a small box, but it's actually just the frame, I mean the shell for it. But we actually sell a super server, a small business server with accounting, with CRM, with document management, a wiki, a Windows file share on a small miniature server. Sells for about 600 bucks, but it has all of the business software for a small business. So it's not in the cloud where you have to put your data up there, and God knows who's looking at it after you close the account. What happens to your data? Um, and it's not a piece that you're putting into a data center that potentially could break down. Someone has to watch it. This right here we manage remotely for you. All of the updates are done for you. So, and it's something that you can go to Business Solution 360, and if you sign up for coaching service with them, they throw in our small business server with their services. So, if you're a
So
small business and you're just wondering, you need something in place before you go out and subscribe to anyone or look at anything else, please come talk to us, either myself or, like I said, reach out to Business Solution 360, and they can tell you how to get a small, compact, small business server. It just plugs into your network time. All the software is there. It's web based. Um,
and let me ask you this, in layman's terms, what problem does it solve?
the problem that it solves is one, it gives you all the accounting that you needed, so it's GAP certified. It's a full CRM system based on the same system that some of the other more popular, expensive CRMs are based on. Um, it comes with a document management. All small business at some point, you're going to start generating a lot of paper. Receipts come in, other documents, And with depending on the retention period, you may be required to hold on to these for years. And at some point, paper just takes up space. It fills up your file cabinet,
And
and
it's
then it
typically what
becomes
you're saying is it typically replaces paper.
yes. So
Okay.
I read a paper that said that a fully functional business owner is spending about a third of their time searching down paper, looking for this document, that document. So the
Now you said
document
you said
management,
it has a CRM, and what else does it have in it?
accounting,
Okay.
CRM, document management, and a wiki. So the wiki is more for your common forms and documents that you want to share with everyone. The document management is for all your other documents, business receipts, contracts.
And is it a
Everything.
SaaS-based offering?
Huh?
And is it a SaaS-based offering?
No, it's all contained in your little server here that you plug into your network, and comes with about 2 terabytes of storage. So we've basically taken the best single board, high end performing computer boards, which are generally now used for open AI or used for some kind of AI system. But we've taken the same technology and put them into a case for small businesses and loaded up with the software that small business would also need.
Do they pay it like one payment, or do they do just a
If you want to
subscription?
buy it outright, you can buy it for, like I said, the selling price is $6.99 if you just want to buy it.
Okay.
But if you sign up for coaching services with Business Solution 360, then with their service offering, they throw in the small business server because when they design campaigns for you, when they load up leads for you, when they there's a lot of back end stuff that they do. They want to put it onto a system where they know that you can follow. So rather than me just give you advice as a business coach, I can load a campaign with all the data and everything that you need and just say, hey, follow this campaign, go into your CR system and just follow that campaign. It's already there for you.
And how, in terms of the size of the business, what does it scale from
Up to 50 employees.
up to 50 employees?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. So what I'm hearing is you're talking about all of your financial and customer solutions in a small box to run your back office operations for less than $1,000.
Yes. If you just
That's
want
it.
to buy it outright. Or if you want to sign up for coaching services and a lot of automation, which I'll get into some of that when we talk the next half hour when I start talking about leads. Um, that the service offering from Business Solution 360 is very great. People should think about if you need some help with coaching. Of course, if you need coaching, selling or marketing, advice, information, time is available. For technology, I'm available. You can reach out to me. But as far as business coaching, Business Solutions is one of the best ones out there because they really help you get off the ground, provide everything that you need to run your operation. They're not just selling you advice and information; they're actually helping you build a business, putting in the core pieces so you can focus on building a business and not worrying about trying to figure out how you're going to what your CRM solution is going to be or your ERP system or accounting system and how you're going to keep up with all these documents. So they do a lot
So
of that for you.
yeah, so I mean, I would say this: any company, it's small company, a large company, is going to have to invest in
Yes,
infrastructure. They're going to have to
that
invest
is true.
in financial applications. They're going to have to invest in customer relations, CRM applications, or manage their customer data. So again, what I would typically do is after I've kind of chiseled down who my target market is, you're going to have customers, businesses less than 50 people. If it's industry specific, you'll need to know that. But if it's not, and it's just any small business that's less than 50, I would typically layer a couple of questions to qualify out customers that it doesn't speak to and say, you can set up your business, start from scratch, manage all of your customer data and your financial operations for less than $1,000. And
Yes,
then stop.
and then stop. Yes,
And then stop. Key. And either one, it collects or not. Or if you want to back in with the objections, then you will ask them how many different providers, how many different service providers do they use in order to manage their current business?
true.
Ask them what that looks like. And then what are the biggest challenges that they're having? And then on average, if they'll share with you about how much they pay for that. And then ask if you can consolidate that into one system that's easy to plug and play, You can consolidate and move all of your data into one system, have one vendor and or service provider for less than $1,000. Would that be worth finding out more information about? Stop. And either that's a yes or a no. And if they say no, you always ask why, because at that point in time, you have nothing to lose. They may be locked in with a particular provider in a contract for a certain number of years, depending on how they're currently operating. But you have to have those layers of questions to overcome objections. But keep it simple, keep it straight to the point, unless you're talking to a technical person who wants to hear a lot of information, but you have to qualify whether that's really the person who is going to be making the decision, because usually business operations, CEOs, general managers, they want the big picture, get to the point. How is it going to help them? Either you're doing one of a couple of things. You're helping them make more money, you're helping them cut costs, or somehow you're helping them to squeeze profit out of how they're currently doing things.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you are selling on the most part. I mean, with the exception of eating a hamburger. If you're selling something, either you're helping them make more money, you're helping their business make more money, you're helping their business cut costs, and ultimately doing so to squeeze more profit out of it. If you can have that simple conversation, you can talk to anybody. It doesn't matter what they do. And as a seller, as an individual, as a small business, or a multinational business corporation, you're having the same conversation.
And Tom, I want people to notice that as Tom was going through his spiel, notice that when he asks questions, they're all closing in questions. So it doesn't matter what you respond. He's controlling the response. So, but you don't take that same approach with an open-end question, because you have no control at that point. You don't know the response are going to be, and then you have to really think on your feet to try to reel it back in. So make sure that when you ask the question, there's only one or two, there's maybe two responses, or here are some responses that are applicable to the question for you to choose from, and that's it. And you control every one of those answers. So that way it's closed off, and you know how to control the flow of the conversation. Versus if you just ask an open-ended question, the conversation can go anywhere at that point, and you may not be able to reel it back in and control it from that point.
Gotcha. All right.
That's the difference between a good salesperson, a champion seller like Tom, and an inexperienced person who's out there trying to sell a service or a product.
Gotcha. Want to acknowledge cousin Elisa, who is on the line as well. Carol Wilson asked a question. Typically, the objection you get is, I don't have the money, or I don't have the time. That depends on what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to position. But ultimately, when you talk about, they have the money, they may not have the interest at the
Tom,
current time.
what if I find the money for you? You say you don't have the money. Okay, well, if we were to sit down and go over your expenses, go over the books, and I actually find the money by cutting costs or find a way to bring in more revenue for you to cover the cost of this, would you be interested?
Would you consider it?
Or would you consider it?
Would you consider it? And again, I would layer in, because to answer your earlier question, Jimmy, my strategy would be to get to the objections early so that you can understand how they respond to them. So if there are typical objections, you can actually feed them into the conversation to see how they respond. And then you can pivot to that so that you can go ahead and get that, because there are certain folks that you may not be able to sell, but there are folks who may not have any time per se, or they may not have any interest. So find out. You don't want to say, well, are you interested in this product? Well, no. And then thank you. What you want to do is, if you have a qualified customer, and that is key. If you have a qualified customer, then find out what their objections are early and upfront. Because with salespeople, you don't eat if you don't sell. And so you want to qualify people who are absolutely not a good fit for your product or service. You want to qualify people out who just don't like you for whatever reason. And that does sometimes happen, versus someone who is, this person is just trying to sell me something. I don't need another salesperson. Actually take the time to get to know what their needs are. And once you get to know what their needs are, you connect with them, and they can appreciate the fact that you're not trying to sell them something. Unless they are literally asking for something to buy.
Right.
Don't sell. You do discovery. It's what we call discovery first. And then you determine whether they are a good prospect for you to engage and spend more time with. Because quite frankly, your time is just as important, if not more important, than theirs is. And so that's the psychology that you have to learn to adapt to.
And as far as the question about time, I do run into that quite frequently with talking to small business owners. I just don't have the time. I just don't have the time. I just don't have the time. Okay, well, what they're really saying is they can't walk away from their business because they are the business. And one of the things that you have to think about, Tom, is for me, don't fall in love with your business. A business is an asset or commodity like your home or any other assets is there to build you wealth. But at some point, you may have to part with it. You may have to sell it. So if you're investing in stock, don't fall in love with the stock because when it reach my profit goal, I'm selling it. You have to be disciplined. I don't love the company that much. I'm just going to hang on to the stock and wait for the price to fall. Same thing with your business. You start a business going with the goal when you walk through the door, when you walk into it, of how you're going to walk out of it. Either you're going to sell it or you're going to hand it down to your heirs. It's one of the two, or it's going to fall apart. So you have to decide up front how you want to walk away from this thing or what's going to happen in the long run. And you need to have a succession plan in place. So when people say I don't have the time, what they're really saying is I'm glued to my business. But I'm going to show you how to get unglued so you can find time to take vacation, spend time with your family, go to Little League games. But that's going to require you to make some an investment and some other things so you can free up yourself either through automation or maybe hiring other people or becoming more efficient in what you're doing in order to free up time for you to have a life so you can go do other things.
I
Once
would.
again, if I can do that and show you how to do that effectively and free up some time for you, would you consider or would you think about doing business with us?
Gotcha. Sometimes it's a timing thing, Jimmy, in terms of having the money and or having the time, because people have time and money for the things that they want,
Oh yeah,
whether whether it's a drink, a
that is
cigar,
true.
or a solution. So what they're typically saying is they don't know you. They don't know how your product or service is going to solve their problem, is going to remove a pain that they may have, but they may not know enough about your product or service to understand how it's going to do that. And sometimes they literally may not have the time. And so a lot of it is truly a timing thing. And so as a result, that's why you do have to layer it. So you have to take it in steps. Unless
True.
you're selling a very random commodity product, typically you're not going to have too many. I'm talking to you, and then I'm going to get a sale or a contract, unless it's something they were literally looking for and they just happen to run into you and
And
they
that's
look
very
like
rare, Tom.
it's very rare.
The
So you have to
planners line
understand
up. All the planners have to line up just right when that happens. It happens
exactly
occasionally,
right.
but it doesn't. Just don't expect it to happen all the time because you can be very
Well,
disappointed.
and that's why you have to understand that sales is a process. Don't expect to get a sale the first time you talk to them. It could take, depending on how complex your solution is, 3, 5, 10 plus interactions before you get to a conversion from someone who doesn't know you from Adam to being a customer. And then understand that when you become a customer, that's really when the work begins. Because if you sell something that you can't service, if you have a solution that doesn't meet its promise, then you're not going to have a customer for very long. So
True.
understand the back office of how you're going to continue to service a particular customer and what your strategy is. I have a comment from Gregory Hines: become a trusted advisor. Yeah, a trusted advisor is someone who comes to you for answers, for solutions. This is the challenge. It may not always be for the specific thing that you provide, what you offer at the time, but they can come to you for advice. But that is also an earned role. Brother
True.
Harris can probably speak to that. You don't become a trusted advisor by speaking to
Overnight.
someone one or two
That is
times.
true.
What you do is by actually solving their problems, connecting them with other people, being the person who can at least route them in the right directions for several things, even if it does not benefit you personally. Trusted advisor, the core is trust. They have to know you, trust you, and more importantly, understand that You have their best interest in mind, not yours. That is another difference of a trusted advisor. A trusted advisor will tell you if you don't have the right thing for them and you're not there to make a fast buck. But that has to become proven over a period of time. Sometimes you have to say, you know what? I would love to be able to provide this for you, but I'm looking out for your interests, not my short term interest. And so I'm actually going to steer you towards a specific person, towards a specific product, because it's important that I keep you in that trusted advisor space than it is that I make money now and possibly lose a client for the long term.
That is true, Tom. And we have one of those. I don't have many in my life, but the company that services our cars, the owner is the most honest mechanic that I've ever anticipated. I mean, ever encountered in my life. Um, they're straight shooters, Tom. Even if he give you an estimate for $1,000 and it end up costing 600, in the end he'll charge you the 600, even though you agreed to pay the $1,000. Could very easily charge you the $1,000 because you're okay with the estimate when he gave it to you. So he's one of those kind of people. And also, a lot of times you go in with simple stuff. He'll check the car out. He'll give you an answer. We don't even charge for a lot of little things that other shops will just nickel and dime you for. So he's an owner that I actually trust with my cars. And if he can't fix it, then he'll let you know he can't and where to go. But if he can, I already know that I'm getting the best price I'm going to possibly get from someone that I can trust to do the work and do it right. And that's the kind of reputation you want to build with your business when you're dealing with other people. You want to become the trusted advisor, or what I call the business partner of that person. So with your customers, let them know that you're in it with them. That, hey, I want to see you succeed. I want to see. Sometimes it may not even be my product or my solution that's best for you, but if there's something else out there that works better for you that I know of and is a better fit, then I'll let you know. Even though I'm going to miss out on the sale, but it's more important that I offer you good solutions so you can trust me than to make a sale. And I think when you can develop that kind of rapport with somebody, it'll pay off benefits in the long run, even though you may lose some short-term sales every now and then.
Agreed. So let's kind of go in with a couple of things. Starting from the front, understanding what business you're in, who is your clientele, and most importantly, who is not your clientele, because everybody should not be your client. If you think you're trying to sell to everybody, you're quite frankly selling to nobody. Understand who your customer is, who your clientele is. Understand what business you're in. And it's not the product or the service you sell, but what problem are you trying to solve? It's usually a much bigger picture than the problem or the service that you're trying to offer to the market. Understand who your clientele is, why they're your clientele. What are the characteristics of their clientele? What are their key problems that you can solve? What is the reason behind the sale? Not the product or service. What is the problem that you're solving? How does it benefit them? And then from there, you have to understand, to Jimmy's earlier point, how to deal with the objections. It may not be the right time for a specific prospect, but if they don't have the money, they don't have the time. If you've gone in layered with at least maybe 2 to 3 questions to get right to the heart of whether they are a good prospect for you, you can always collect their information, send them information on a periodic basis to get your name in front of them. That's kind of the marketing piece or the demand generation piece. And then you determine over the long term whether they are a good prospect for you or a potential customer for you now, or maybe it's a 1 to 2 year cycle in terms of building that trust, in terms of being able to offer something of value to them. And this is the other thing, you have to be prepared doing your research, understanding what your position in the market is. There are a lot of different car makers. There are a lot of different grocery stores. There are a lot of different technology offerings in the software space. There are a lot fewer in the hardware space now. There are a lot of different places that you go to news. For instance, what is the difference between Fox, and the other conservative radio stations. They're all conservative, but they all have a specific position. They don't cater to everyone who's a conservative. If you are on the more liberal side of it, why do certain people watch CNN versus MSNBC or
True.
other channels on the other side? They all cater to a specific target market. There are folks who are loyalists, and then there are folks, it depends on what day it is, who they'll listen to. It's extremely important that you understand, just like a radio station, how to differentiate yourself based upon genre, based upon need, and then very simply be able to, within 30 seconds to a minute's tops, share with them the challenge that you are dealing with, how you are solving those problems, and if you can, quantify that in economic terms.
Right.
Quantify that in that. If you can show somebody how to save 10%, 20%, 40% off of something that they're already spending money on, they would be crazy not to look at it. Even if they're not in the position to buy it right now, if you can tell them how to save 10%, 20%, 40%, and depending on how much that product costs, that can make a significant difference.
And also with that, Tom, make sure that you position it because people feel more comfortable in groups. So when you talk about the pain, you can say, there was a company that we helped who had a 1% conversion rate. So you list the pain and the matrix behind it. And with our solution, they went from converting 1% to 12%. But being able to position where you're not going to be in it by yourself. There are other people who are actually implementing this solution, have used the solution, it's worked well for them. So people start thinking that, well, if they were able to go from 1% to 12%, maybe I can do the same. But be part, as long as you're part of a group, the psychology there is that you feel more comfortable when you know other people have done this also. You're not just out there on the leading edge by yourself or bleeding edge by yourself.
Good deal. And as we have about, probably a little bit over 10 minutes left, any business, large or small, they go from a pool of suspects, people who are not doing business with them, to a pool of prospects who you have at least begin to qualify and get into a funnel that you are developing. They may know your name, they're not a customer, to generating interest. What this may mean is a conversation. It could
Mhm.
mean a presentation. It could mean generating more interest in that product or service. You go from there to actually putting together a presentation, or depending on the product or service, a proposal, and then know that they're going to shop it around. That's why it's very important for you to know who you for and who you're not for in terms of your target market, how you compare to the competition, because they're typically going to shop you around as they should. Anybody's going to do that. And then when it comes down to it, depending on whether it's a simple or complex sale, whether there are other people involved in the decision-making process, and make sure that you don't have a blind spot because somebody else may be making the decision, but you're not talking to that person, and making sure that you get a consensus in order to make a decision. Deal with your objectives early, and then figure out if there's something that they are uncomfortable or hesitant about early, so you can address those things easy. And then it depends on what space you're in. If you can engage them to buy as opposed to giving a hard sell, then it puts them in a position of power. Some
Right.
people feel uncomfortable with someone trying to do a hard sell, but if you give control to them and allow them to buy, otherwise, if we were to move forward with this, an objection, if we were to move forward with this, do you think that you would want to go with the subscription service, or would you want to outright, buy it off the shelf?
Another
Or
closing question where you control both of the outcomes.
exactly, if you could see yourself using this product or service right now, what concerns would you have? Dealing with objections, finding out what those are, and if they are engaging you, you know that they are still interested.
And if they decide to go another route, Tom, do not give up on your prospects. You'd be surprised how many times things go awry with your first choice. Um, you thought this was going to work out, only to get it in house and it doesn't work out. And at that point, they can either live and be frustrated, or continue to engage with you, the person who may have the answer for them. So just because they decide to go at your competition, don't give up on your prospects. Prospects continue to reach out to them, talk to them, see where their pain points are, and if it becomes a budget issue, a performance issue, or ease of use issue, whatever the issues are, your product or your service may be able to deal with that where the competition didn't, or where the competition failed. And so you want to be there to salvage and like you say, empower the person, the decision maker. Let them know that, okay, well, this didn't quite work out, but you still have a chance to be the hero here by bringing in the solution that fits better, and then explain why your solution fits better. And you can work out on how to put into a trial basis or a testing phase to prove out your point. But simply because the person said, well, I've decided to go with Cisco, and you say, oh, okay, well, I guess that's it, and walk out the door and never come back, is just the wrong approach.
Gotcha. Got a one comment from cousin Audrey K.
Audrey,
Oftentimes,
okay.
yeah, oftentimes fast talkers who try to sell you a product, they don't offer a warranty, and they try to load you a lot of information and never ask, do you have any questions? Although you're expecting them. Again, for any sellers, questions, intelligent questions, I'll put it that way, are your greatest ammunition. Why is that? You want the prospect or the customer to talk more than you do, because you're going to get more information enabling and encouraging them to talk than you talking 60, 70, 80% of the time, and them only talking 10%, 20%, 30% of the time. Because if you get them to talk, you will find out what their objections are. You will find out what their pain points are. And you will find out, whether they are truly someone who is worth the time to continue to qualify for, or just to collect their data and then kind of put them into your marketing system to stay in contact. It is very important, people.
Well, Tom, this is just basic relationship management. When you're dealing with other people, one of the best ways is to get people to open up, is to talk, is to let them talk, and just
Correct.
listen.
Correct.
Ask a few questions to point them in the right direction, but then just let them talk. Believe it or not, people will tell you what their pain points are. They'll share with the problems that they're having, and if they trust you enough to at least get you to that point, um, then you are in position to become that trusted advisor. Where, I'm not trying to sell you anything, but if I may offer, are you open to it? Or can I send you something, or show you something, or demo something, or can we talk later? But like you said, always empower them to make the decision for the next step. Um, and if you can do that, if a person is talking 80% of the time, you can't get your questions in or get them answered, then they're trying to sell you something, and you may not want to be sold anything. Um,
Agreed.
so,
People do not want to be sold, they prefer to buy.
right.
People do not want to be sold, they prefer to buy. They don't mind being led sometimes, but they don't want to be strong armed. They want to be put in a position of power to buy. And that's the
Yeah, if
key.
it's pressure selling and they're arm twisting and putting the fear of God in you, that if you don't do this, the sky's going to fall tomorrow, you may want to walk away.
Right. And the best sales calls, in my experience, Jimmy, don't feel like a sales call. They just feel like a natural conversation. You may be talking about business. You may be talking about what's going on at work. And sometimes you do make some small talk before you get into an engagement process. But the best sales calls don't feel like a sales call.
That is true. So, Tom, we got a few minutes left, and so we're going to continue part two of this next week. We're going to talk about leads and some automation. So, okay,
So if
and
anybody, yes, if anybody has any questions on any of the information that we shared today, you may be a entrepreneur, you may be a small business that's trying to grow or trying to get kickstarted, and you just want to have some conversation about sales strategy, you can send an email or leave a message on my business line, and we can have a conversation, do a free 30-minute consultation just to kind of discuss where you are, where you're going, and discuss strategy. Of course, nothing required, so to speak, in terms of having a conversation with that. So, Jimmy, as we have
I
5 minutes
was
left,
going to say put that information in Rolodex, but I don't think we do Rolodex anymore, do we?
no, we don't.
Okay. But definitely add that as a contact and reach out to Tommy. I'm telling you, people, that's a good resource to have. If you have a small business or you're thinking about starting a small business, make sure you have the right team around you. You may not be a champion seller, but having access to a champion seller, is good, because when you run into problems, when you're losing and not converting and closing the deals that you want, you may need someone to take a look at what you're doing and to tweak what you're doing, help you increase your conversion rate from whatever it is to becoming a number where you want to be, because every deal that you convert and close means more revenue for your business, which is what you want. And you're not going to get there, by trial and error on your own. So learn from the people who've done it, who know how to do it, and let them evaluate you. If he's offering a free session, people, I'm telling you, is well worth it, because once again, we're trying to make the resources available that will cost tens of thousands of dollars to go out and hire a business coach, sometimes, or a sales professional to come in and train you or your staff on how to close deals and sell better. And now you have it available right here on Black Man Speak. We're trying to bring the resources to you that help you grow.
And the reason why this is important, and the reason that I have a passion for this, I found this data point.
All
Well,
right.
there are actually two data points. The facts: Black-owned businesses only get 2% of the Black consumer spend, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a few. We have 3 minutes. If Black consumers spent 10% more of their income in Black businesses, it would generate 1 million more jobs for African Americans. After the government, Black business are the biggest employer of African
Two
Americans.
percent, Tom.
2%, less than
Ouch.
2%. And this is why that is important. The $1.98 trillion spending power. So of that, almost $2 trillion, which is expected, I want to say in 2025, 2 million, over 2 million by 2026. Our businesses get 2% of that. Imagine if people did like I do, which is intentionally spend any income that I have with contractors within our community, business people within our communities, vendors within our communities, the impact that that would make in terms of their ability to scale, grow, not just feed their families and keep a roof over their head, but actually build our economy. Because, as Malcolm X said a long time ago, you have no freedom if you can't feed yourself, house yourself, and or take care of your own community.
That is true, Tom.
So
The,
with that being
the,
said,
the, the
Jimmy,
color of freedom in America is green.
exactly.
If you don't have it, you're not free.
All right, Jimmy. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. And again, folks, I want to make sure, and I said up front, this is a fundamentals conversation on sales, talking about the psychology. We'll definitely have more conversations like this, because it is in our best interest that we build and grow
That is
our
true.
economy within the United States and get above that 2% number. And that's a part of what we do. Sales drives the economy. Retail sales in itself drives about 2/3 of the economy of the United States. We are a speck on an elephant's behind, and that has to grow. So that is my closing statement, Jim.
Yeah, Tom, that is pitiful. 2%. We have to do better than that, and we will. So please come back next week, same time, same channel. We're going to be dealing with
Oh,
leads
you
and
know
what to
what,
do with
Jimmy?
them.
That may have to be 2 weeks, because next week we're going to have the conversation on Medicare. I think we talked
Oh, we
about
have
this.
Medicare next week?
Yeah,
Okay.
we
And
have
in 2 weeks, then
Medicare.
we'll do
2 weeks.
leads
Yeah,
and automation and how to deal with leads, how to turn them into how to convert them into a paying customer. So,
exactly.
with that being said, people, thanks a lot for coming out. We'll be here next week. We want to show our love and appreciation to everyone who participated on the chat channel, and that's pretty much it. Tommy, you had a closing word before we go to
Just, just
our
want to thank, as always, want to thank everybody for
team.
joining us this evening. If this information was useful to you, and or you could find useful to anyone else that you know, whether they are in the sales or non-sales space, because non-sales people sell too. They just don't get paid for it. So make sure you share this information. If you have any other questions or needs, you know how to get in contact with us. Of course, thank you very much. Have a good evening. And of course, welcome back next Wednesday as we'll be talking about health insurance and what you need to know, Medicare in particular, because of course, if it's Wednesday night, Jimmy,
It's certainly Black Men Speak.
good night.